Today I want to talk to you about another one of my favorite underrated consoles, and that's this guy right here, the Bally Astrocade. Now, it was originally released in 1977 by Bally Midway, and this is the same year as the release of the Atari 2600. But by comparison, the Astrocade has far superior graphics and sound capabilities. Unfortunately, the programming is a little bit tougher, so a lot of the games don't really take full advantage of the capabilities of the system. Now, if I had to name, one thing as being the single downfall of the system as a whole, I would say it's the marketing. Really, this console was marketed more as a home computer than a video game console, and I think that really didn't work in its favor. It was initially sold through mail order only, and in fact none of the units shipped until 1978, so there's sort of a hiccup right at the beginning of its life cycle. And then it was sold through smaller computer stores, and not really alongside its sort of console brethren. So I think the problem here is that, especially without a full keyboard, we've got this sort of little small makeshift keyboard on it, and without as much power as some of the other home computers, I don't think it was really something that would have been sought after by someone who is strictly looking for a home computer. But on the console side, I think it would have sold a lot better. Now, the rights for it were eventually acquired by Astrovision in 1981, and they did sell it through Montgomery Ward, so that was sort of a step in the right direction. But again, they sold it more as a computer than a gaming console, and in fact it came packaged with the basic cartridge. So I think that was their big mistake there, is maybe if they had concentrated on it as more of a gaming console than a computer, it would have been a lot more successful. But still, I think there are a lot of great games for it, and even as a computer, you can program in some of your own games, which can be a lot of fun. So let's take a closer look. So here we have a closer look at the console itself, and you can see it's sort of a black look with a gold trim, and we have our little sort of calculator type keypad on here, and this does have a built-in calculator, just in case you need that. Here we have our eject and our reset buttons, and here's where our cartridge goes. And for those of you who have seen some of my prior videos, you know I'm a sucker for a faux wood grain finish. So on the front and on the sides here, we have this sort of lovely faux wood grain look, and I just love it. I think it's a great part of these old systems like this. So hardwired to the system, we have our typical RF connector with the F plug on here, and of course you need to get your adapter for that to plug it into your modern TV. And then we also have our power adapter, which also is hardwired, and also comes with a USB cable included. Actually, that's not true. I don't know what this is doing here. In any case, so that's basically what the system looks like, and if you look under here, you can actually store your game cartridges underneath the top of the console. So you can see here we've got Galactic Invasion here, lots of other goodies, and I actually store them this way. They do have boxes. All of mine are boxed, but I like to store them this way because it's easier to keep the boxes looking nicer if I'm not sort of opening and closing them all the time. And the cover here actually keeps the dust out pretty nice, I think. So I also have the basic cartridge, and just in case you're wondering how you would save your programs, it actually has this little audio in and out jack. And so what you'll do is you'll connect this to a cassette tape player, and so you just literally record the program out of here and you load it back in the same way. Now the cartridges go into these little slots here, and you can see they sort of pop into place, and then you can hit the eject button to send them back out. And they did try to design these as close to a cassette tape looking as possible. Now, of course, there's no tape in here at all, but they did sort of like that particular look. Now, another interesting one that I have here, and honestly, I'm not really sure where I got this, but I don't quite remember. But this is the Ulti multi-cart, and this has every Astrocade game ever released all on one cart, and you just change the game via these dip switches here. So this can be really handy if you can find one of these. And I should also mention with the Bally Basic, they have this overlay here, and you can see that this way you can get all of your letters and symbols and whatnot, and it even has keyboard shortcuts for different basic commands. And the way you get those is if you hold this key down here that says words, then you get all of the yellow words, so you can hold it down and press another one for a word, and then you've got the green, red, and blue, these three here, and you hold that down to get each one of those. So you can imagine trying to actually type out things on this keyboard is a real pain, and the keys, honestly, the action on the keys kind of sucks, so it's really hard. If you are interested in looking at sort of programs in action, if you look at the first couple of videos I posted on this channel, I actually have a performance that I did on nostalgia and those sorts of things, and I used 2 Astrocades and programmed some pretty basic things for those. So if you want to take a look at that to sort of just see what the programming can do, you're more than welcome to do that. Now the controllers are kind of interesting here, and I think the closest I can think of to compare these to are the Fairchild controllers, although I think these are dramatically different. But what you have here is like sort of a pistol grip with a trigger, and then on the top you have an 8-way joystick, and it's also connected to a potentiometer, so you have sort of your paddle control there too. And I think this is a great design, and you do have a little bit of fatigue with the trigger if you're playing a game that requires lots of quick trigger pulls, but pretty much all of these older controllers are going to be that way. You're going to have a little bit of fatigue, so I think this is one of the better ones in that area. Now you may have noticed this is numbered 2, and they also, I'm about to knock everything over here. The other one is numbered 1, so they are numbered, but you don't really have to use number 1 in the first controller port and 2 in the second. There's really no difference in them. And in fact, if you have one of these systems and you're playing games on your own a lot, I would suggest to switch back and forth, because one of the downfalls of these controllers is they tend to be a little more fragile than others. Now here's a look at what the game boxes look like. And I think these are actually pretty interesting, but one thing that I think is kind of funny about them is a lot of the older, especially the sort of 70s era video game boxes, you have things like the original Atari games here, and you can see on the box there's this great picture of all these different Olympic sports all in one thing, and then on the back we have just the different games that are involved, and it looks great. But you notice there's not actually any screenshots on here. And I guess the point is to make it look cooler than it actually is, because this looks awesome, and then you look and it's actually just Pong, the whole thing. 50 versions of Pong. And while I actually like Video Olympics, this is certainly not what the game looks like. Now on the Videocade boxes, the interesting thing I think is you have on this one, Star Battle 2005, you have this awesome picture, and not sure what kind of spaceships these are supposed to be, certainly not copyright protected ones. But then down here at the bottom you actually have a screenshot, and generally it looks really lame next to the picture that they provided on here. But at least I guess they're honest with what it is. And here's another one that's kind of funny. Grand Prix Demolition Derby. Awesome, maybe not so awesome. That being said, I still like the games a lot. And one of the downsides, though, here's a box that I have out of its protective shell. And you notice that the instructions actually are in this open window in the front. So that does kind of suck because your instructions tend to get kind of mangled over time. Also, you can tell that a lot of these are sort of put together, at the last minute. I don't know if you can see this, but this is actually a sticker over top of the box, and so is this one on the side. So a lot of these things were sort of stuck on, I think, after the fact. Or maybe they had some existing merchandise and they're sort of rebranding it. But in any case, boxes are still pretty cool, but there's one fatal flaw of these. Now, how would you imagine you get the game out of a box like this? Maybe open the top? Well, if you open the top, I don't usually open these, but I'll show you. If you open the top here, oh great, and of course I lost my sticker. Open the top, nope, no game. So we'll just close that back. Apologize, it's hard to do this with the camera. So close it back, and it's not in the bottom either. And in fact, you actually open the back flap, and the game is inside. So the problem with this, of course, is if you're just trying to pick the game up, it'll slide out of there really easy. But other than that, I still kind of like what the boxes look like. And for those of you wondering out there, the sticker that fell off says Astrocade Incorporated, and underneath where it was stuck, we have the Bally logo. So I guess this was after the buyout. So anyway, I guess we learned something by my stupidity of trying to open the box. In addition to the console and the games and everything, I also have these two notebooks. And in the first one here, I've got this is just the dip switch settings for my multi-cart, and I also have my owner's manual, the original receipt, and all those sort of things. But the main event really in both of these is that I have all of the print editions of the Arcadian, which is sort of a magazine newsletter sort of thing for Astrocade owners. And I actually purchased all of these online. They are just copies, they're not sort of original print runs. But included in the Arcadian are lots of different things. There's lots of ads, and you can see here there are actually programs you can type in, and a lot of it really is dedicated to that sort of thing. So if you really want to know everything there is to know about the Astrocade, this is your source, including, you can see, let me zoom in here. You can get LT, the little terrestrial, in case you want that. But in any case, these are pretty valuable to have. And like I said, if you're interested in trying to get into the basic and see what you can program, there's some really fun programs in here that don't take too long to type in. So this can be something good to have. And I think I got this from Atari2600.com, if I'm not mistaken. So now how about we take a look at the games? Now, when you start up your console, you have to actually select the game via the numeric keypad. You also have the option of two built-in games, Gunfight and Checkmate, as well as a calculator and sort of a doodling feature. You also can choose your difficulty level from 1 to 9, as well as your number of lives. Now, most of the games released for the system are clones of other games, in this case, Galaga we see here. But when compared to their Atari 2600 counterparts, I think the sprite detail is really nice and the sound is really top quality. Now, I should also mention while I'm thinking about it that this machine does make an appearance in popular culture via the movie National Lampoon's Vacation, which I'm sure a lot of you have seen. And actually in the beginning of the movie, when they're planning out the vacation, the kids are playing video games, and then Mr. Griswold asks to, I don't know if he refers to it as a computer necessarily, but he has to use it, and they sort of use that to start to
plan out the trip, and it becomes sort of a little comedic interlude. I will note that some of the games are not a whole lot of fun if you are playing by yourself. This one, Grand Prix, if you only have one player, you're literally just sort of driving around the track on your own. And as you can see here, I forgot how the controls worked exactly. They take a little bit of getting used to. But at the end of it, if it's just one player, no matter what, you get to be the winner. Now, included in this same cartridge is Demolition Derby, which is actually a lot of fun, especially if you have multiple people over. And in this game, you score points by backing into your enemies. Here's a look at the aforementioned Star Battle. And this one is actually really difficult, and the reason is that the controls are kind of odd. Your ship keeps sort of jumping back to the middle of the screen, even though you don't necessarily tell it to go there. The next game here is Muncher, which is obviously a Pac-Man clone, but this one actually is really good, I think. It handles really well, and the sound effects and the look of it, I think, are much closer to the original Pac-Man. Cosmic Raiders is one of my favorite games on the system, and as I'm sure a few of you can already tell, this is kind of a Defender-esque game. And in this one, though, you do get a shield, which makes it a little bit easier to play, but this one is just a lot of fun, and I think has a lot of really great sound effects. The last game I'm going to show you in this is Space Fortress, and again, this is another really fun game that looks great, sounds great, and plays great. The only downside really is there's a little bit of controller fatigue in this one. You'll see I actually die when I'm trying to switch the controller from one hand to the other. But the resulting explosion at the end is well worth the death. But in any case, this is a great console to own. I think it has a lot of great games for it, and if it's good enough for the Griswolds, it's good enough for me.